Hello and welcome to another Overlord lore video, and today, after several videos just dedicated to Pandora's actor, we will finally dive into the battle you have all been waiting for, and rightfully so. But before we do this, I say thanks to my Patreons for supporting this channel. Now, the battle of Pandora's actor against Platinum Dragonlord is one of the most meaningful, deep, and layered battles in all of fantasy. And therefore let's begin by establishing the goal of the two combatants. First and foremost, Ainz was extremely worried about the unknown enemy that had attacked Shaltir. He knows that they are in possession of a world item, and therefore are very likely to be enemy players, or pose at the very least a comparable threat. And now, finally, after more than 11 volumes of waiting, Ainz encountered definite proof that other players were here by encountering the armor of Ainz. With this confirmed, he conceived a plan to lure out the enemy that thus far had eluded him. After almost turning Shaltir against the guild, he would present himself vulnerable, meaning without his army, his world item, and only Albedo and a few Death Knights as his guard. This in and of itself was a balance act, because by being guarded by too many high-level beings, he might accidentally disencourage his enemies from actually attacking him. Or if he had shown himself vulnerable without any good reason, then his adversaries perhaps might sense the trap, and thus also refrain from doing anything. The choice of his sole remaining guardian wasn't random either. Albedo, with her incredible defensive build and her world item, is very believable in her role, while also presenting the last true obstacle between the would-be avengers of the kingdom and Ainz. And as the Prime Minister of the Sorcerer Kingdom, it was also a natural thing that the first and the second in command of the state would be at the same place during a war, or rather its final phase to be more precise. With this bait laid, all Ainz had to do was to explain the plan he for once actually had to a few persons involved. But Aura, for example, was left in the dark about why Ainz hadn't equipped his world item, while Albedo knew about the reason behind it. In case of downfall of castle and country would have been brought to bear against somebody not intended to fight his enemies. Also Mare and especially Aura, being children and thus rather impulsive, might accidentally say something that would reveal too much information, like Naberal Gamma did during her time with Swords of Darkness. Ainz, by denying Pandora's actor any protection against them, also made any attempt at attacking the supposed Overlord more tempting, while also still keeping the risk extremely low for him. And the reason for this is surprisingly simple. Even if Pandora's actor should fall into the sway of the other side, Aura could also just trap the world itemless Pandora's actor in her own world item, depiction of nature and society, and use the NPC spawning on the inside to rush down Pandora, kill him, and thus remove the mind control. Simultaneously, some of the attackers might also have been trapped, and thus Ainz would have eliminated his enemies, gained a source of information, and deprived the enemy world-class item bearer from any protection from his friends. But in case that none of this happened and the mysterious enemy would just send out a kill team, or indeed a kill person, then Pandora's actor was instructed to gather as much information as possible about the enemy, while Ainz himself would also watch via the mirror of remote viewing, analyzing their every move until Pandora's actor had lost, at which point Albedo was instructed to rush in and end the fight. Ainz would then use the information gained to pinpoint the enemy, their allies, motives, and their number, in order to gain as much insight as possible. Only if this last stage of the plan had succeeded, he would presumably mobilize the tomb and eliminate his enemy root and stem, taking whenever possible prisoners, in order to take excessive revenge. So the very first stage, the very first battle in his plan, was no real battle at all, but only a means to gather information. Now, compared to all of this, the goal of Platinum Dragonlord was simple. Eliminate the Sorcerer King and thus save if not the Kingdom of Riestais, but at the very least the New World, and perhaps one of his pet projects, the Arkland Council State, where he returned his armor to. But Platinum achieved none of his goals. At the end, the Riestais Kingdom was lost, and the Arkland Council State, where he presumably resides at the very moment, now shares a border with one of his arch enemies. And the fight itself was masterfully constructed, from the setup all the way to the very end, with only some minor problems, like Platinum escaping a bit too early. I mean, sure, Platinum Dragonlord was lured into a trap. This in and of itself is nothing special, but while any entity that was ambushed will eventually realize that they are the target, that they are the one the enemy is after, and that they indeed had ran straight into a trap, it is due to the masterful display of strategic planning, foresight, caution, and sheer guile from both Ainz and by extent Pandora's actor that allowed the two to be able to thoroughly deceive Platinum Dragonlord to the point that he didn't even realize that he was the target all along. In Sandorcus' mind, he was the one who acted, the one who knocks, the one who almost killed Ainz, if it hadn't been for Albedo, while in reality, all of this was much closer to a scientist studying a wild animal, hunting its prey. And again, Platinum hadn't had any idea that he was being watched and deceived, and therefore he had drawn the completely wrong conclusions from this battle. For example, at the end of it, he believed that the person in front of him was actually Ainz, that Ainz was inferior to even his armor, that the world-class item of the guild is actually in the hands of Albedo, and that at most, 2 world items are in the possession of Nezarick, that Ainz can't escape his world-separating barrier, that he managed to deceive the Overlord by naming himself Rico Agnea, and that Ainz, while relatively weak, is immune to blunt damage. This, and I have to stress this again, is the truly brilliant part. Platinum Dragonlord was puppeteered while believing to be the master of puppets. And even worse for the Dragonlord, Ainz didn't get careless after his victory, while he now holds an advantage of information about him. Ainz was all about attacking the enemy head-on, but he intended to fight against Platinum again, and lose in order to confirm his information. In other words, while Platinum Dragonlord planned to attack him by dragging his real body out of his hiding place for once. He won't encounter an overconfident or frightened Overlord. He won't encounter a villain, explaining his brilliant plan to the hero. Now, thinking about it, he might actually do this, but the plan itself will have been nothing more but well-crafted lies, perhaps sparkled with some half-truths, some facts, and a display of over-ambitiousness here and there, in order to keep things believable, while Ainz in actuality remains careful to the point of being paranoid, and he won't hesitate to retreat if Platinum turns out to be significantly stronger than the encounter with Pandora's actor had led him to believe. And perhaps after losing 2 times, once by proxy and once against the real body, Ainz might at the very end of the story conclude that this battle is best fought by overwhelming might, and thus he might finally activate Rubedo. Alternatively, during the second fight, Ainz might finally use the red orb, that is supposedly a world item and holds powers, very effective against dragons. Maybe he even ends the Dragonlord by accident during his second duel. Just imagine the reactions of the Floor Guardians to this. And with that said, I say thank you very much for watching. Next time we will get into the battle itself, and until then, special thanks to Adam J, Al Capone, Andy, Angel of Death, Bad Guy Yee, Boyzilla, Chrissy, Diabetic Centaur, Dystopia, Elika Birchleaf, Phalis Catus, Thural Shivan, Gigafight, Ghost of Epicness, Hector Marino, Black Phoenix Emperor, Hoss, Janabi, Jason, Kleinator, Chromius, Larch, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Lord Ulbert Elaine Oddle, Luces Ollie, Lexus Fox, Majima, Matt, Matt C, Marcos, Mr. Shoes, Mindless Wrath, Minnow 13, Mirtis, Nfiria's Potion, Primus 11, Sasuga Ein Samar, Sebastian, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Search, Sparkly Unicorn, the Orc Warboss Rug Smasher, Vash Hawkeye, Zoggo Bane of a Lot, and Zonagon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, over and out.